Hey everybody, it's Mr. Wagstaff here. A lot of cool stuff to talk about today. I think you're going to like this. Here we're going to start talking about the very beginnings of the early Middle Ages. A lot of world history, the way the curriculum is written, really wants to know how world history has influenced who we are today. So while talking about Neanderthals, the transition to farming near fresh water, the rise of big empires like Greece and Rome, all of that is incredibly important in world history, but in a 90-day high school course, a lot of the focus is how world history has affected present day. So in order to do that, you really have to pick up near the Middle Ages to understand the problems of the Middle Ages, how the Middle Ages ends, and how we have grown since then. And a lot of what we're going to talk about this unit is how the Middle Ages started and how the Middle Ages ended. So it's almost like we're just jumping smack dab in the middle of true world history in order to meet the curriculum demands that are put on us. All right. So, but a lot of cool stuff to talk about today. Right ahead of some background in the religion and the different religions at the time. And we're going to start talking about the conflicts and the issues that have arisen among the different groups with religion at the time. Okay, so let me make myself smaller here. This is always touchy with new technology. Make sure that this all works. All right, make myself smaller like that. Put myself up here in the corner. All right. So we're going to be talking about the early Middle Ages, 500 AD to 1500 AD. So whenever you see this AD, all right, it does not mean after death. All right, a lot of people think that it's a Latin term, Annos Dios. I probably just butchered that myself. If you mentally think of that AD as being after death, meaning after Jesus' death, you're fine. As long as you know that means it's after, it's the second half of it. BC means before Christ. The reason that it doesn't add up exactly is because if you just used BC meaning before Christ and then AD meaning after death, then the whole time period when Jesus was alive would have no years, which is about, 30-some years. So they don't exactly match up. And also, random thing here when we start talking about years, so nobody, and this is a great lead into today. So there's a whole bunch of different civilizations on Earth, all over the place, all right? So they all had their own years. So once all these civilizations started merging together, they had to come up with like a common year. Since the vast majority of people, especially in Europe at the time, were Christian, they decided to base it on the life of Jesus. So they're like, hey, let's just start with Jesus when he was born being like year 1. All right. So they made the best guess of when Jesus was born and labeled that year 1. And then they just counted from there up to present day and then counted that as whatever year they were on. I believe it was like in the year 600 and something when they actually switched over to it so they would all be on the same calendar. So like in the year 115, nobody actually called it the year 115. Every individual civilization had their own way of keeping track. It's not until like the year 600 that they're like, okay, this is the new way we're going to start counting years. And then they went back in time and just labeled each year what it would have been then. So that's how we got our current years. But so from 500 to 1500, we're going to cover 1,000 years today. It's interesting how this course goes on. Like yesterday, in the last couple of days, we've been talking about religion, which covers thousands of years. Today, we're going to start covering almost 1,000 years. Almost every lesson for the entire semester starts getting a smaller bit of time. Basically, by the end of this semester, we're going to be talking about individual battles and things. World War II itself, we spend about a year a day talking about World War II, if that, up to terrorism and the current stuff that happens today. So we start out covering big hunks of time up to present day, when we start really narrowing down and talking about a lot of the current events that the world faces in present day. All right. So with that being said, today is a really, really cool story that you're going to like. We're going to start talking about Constantine and Constantinople. The best way of doing this, there's a map, all right? This here is a map. So let me go here and start drawing, all right? If you notice anything that's outlined here, boop, 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 all of this, all right? This is technically, everything that is outlined in yellow is the Roman Empire. All right, this is the Big Mac Daddy. That's what we're going to talk about today, the Roman Empire. Yes, tons of people live in Asia and all that, but here for the catalyst of what's going to affect present day in our society, we're going to focus here over 1,000 years ago. This is the Roman Empire, and they owned basically everything that you can imagine. So, as they continued to grow, right, and let me point out, this right here, I just circled on that map, that is the actual city of Rome. So it started out as a city, and it just grew and grew and grew and took over all of this stuff everywhere. All right? Now, as Rome, and I'll change colors here. We'll go red, or, oh, it's a pink color. As Rome spread out more in this direction, all right, and especially once they started coming around here and taking over parts of North Africa, it was really hard to get, and I'll change colors here, all the stuff from like this area all the way back around here to Rome. That is a long way to travel. So what they decided to do is they're going to make it a lot shorter. Now, yeah, if you have a boat, real easy here to get to Rome, but a lot of people didn't have a boat, especially these poor areas that Rome owned. So what the Roman Empire did is instead of making everything go here to Rome, they're just going to make a new capital of the Roman Empire. All right? So the city of Rome is still going to exist, but the center of this entire empire is actually going to be this new city here. All right? And let me I'll circle it with two different colors. This city right here is called Constantinople. Because the emperor of Rome at the time is called Constantine. So he creates a new city, calls it Constantinople. So Constantinople right here is now the capital of the Roman Empire, even though it is nowhere close to the actual city of Rome. So the Roman Empire still exists. Constantinople is the capital. This is where the empire lives, or the emperor lives. This is where the armies are. This is where everything is centered in Constantinople. Sure, Rome's still a rich city, but it is not the center of the Roman Empire anymore. All right? So, I believe that's going to be the question here, is why did Constantine move the official capital from the Roman Empire away from the city of Rome to the new city of Constantinople? To be in the center of the empire. Even though it seems like it's over here on the side, it's actually not, since everybody had to travel across land unless you were a really rich area and could have a bunch of boats. So he moved it to the center so that it could be in the center of the Roman Empire. Doesn't seem like there's going to be a lot of drama with that, but there is going to be some issues. All right. So let me see what map I got here. You know, I'm going to go back to the other map and talk some more using this map, even though we're moving on now. So once Constantinople is set up over here, all right, you know who's not very well defended? Is Rome. Now, there's a very important person left in Rome. All right. If you remember from the last couple lessons, what religion is the entire Roman Empire? It is now Christian. Right? So everybody here is like mandated to be Christian, and Christianity becomes the largest religion around. The leader of the Christian church, and the church is called the Roman Catholic Church, is a guy named the Pope. Still to this day, the head of the Catholic Church is called the Pope. The Pope is an extremely powerful man. All right. Even though the emperor now has moved to Constantinople, the Pope still lives in Rome. To present day, the city of Rome, which is in Italy today, it is called the Vatican, has its own city inside Rome, which is where the Pope lives to present day, who's the head of the entire church around the entire world. All right. He still lives here in Rome. So after Constantine leaves and creates Constantinople, it really makes this whole area all around in here very, very weak. So what ends up happening is there's a bunch of people from these, they're called Germanic tribes, all right, is where the term Germany will eventually come from. They just kind of invade from different areas because they know all the troops are over here in Constantinople. So they start invading and taking over the Roman Empire. This is near the end of the Roman Empire. The Roman Empire has existed for about 1,000 years now and has gotten really, really weak. So, as the Roman Empire keeps getting invaded by the Germanic people, which are also referred to as Franks, that they start taking over these big areas. Now, Rome is a very smart people, really focused on education. Greece, which was well before this, also really focused on education. There's a lot of gains that society had learned from and human civilization had learned from the Romans and the Greeks. When the Franks invade and take it over, they have no value put on education. So once they hold these big hunks of land, there's no more schooling. It doesn't take real long when you just tell a whole generation of people that learning's dumb and they don't have to go to school, that basically everything human civilization had gained for a really long time is just poof, gone. And there's no longer a focus on education once these Germanic people come in and take over. Even though the Germanic people are coming in and taking over and they are completely changing the culture in this part of the Roman Empire and here, all right, they are all still very religious, right? And they're all Christian. So as they come in and they take over these areas, they actually become devout Christians themselves. And that's going to be the question. The next question there on number 12 is, why was there such a loss of emphasis on education once the Germanic tribes and the Franks started coming in and taking over this weakened Roman Empire? Is because they didn't care about education. They didn't care about that culture. So once they stopped focusing on education, the society got dumber pretty quick. And we're going to see a lasting effect of that. All right. And see if I got any good pictures here. I don't think I do. I'm going to stay here because I'm going to keep telling the story. So number 12, what caused there to be such a massive loss of emphasis on education in Rome when the Germanic tribes invaded? How did Germanic tribes feel about education? What in the thing? So the Roman Empire starts getting dumber, but they're still very religious, and they're all Christians. You with me so far? All right. Now, there's a couple very important things that you have to understand about Rome at the time, and the way the Pope, who is the head Christian, who still lives in Rome, handles Christians. Now, this is going to seem crazy to you. So, the Pope, it says he's the head Christian. The Pope, in the Christian religion at the time, decides who can go to heaven and who can't, in like big fell swoops. The Pope says only people that live inside the Roman Empire can actually go to heaven. So, a lot of these Germanic people that live up here, the guys we're getting ready to talk about, people like Charles Martel, they live up here outside the Roman Empire. Even though they are Christians, right, and they love the Pope who lives here, the Pope doesn't like them because they don't live inside the Roman Empire. It's a really unique situation. It's hard for us to understand today, but so there's a whole bunch of Christians that live up here outside the Roman Empire. Once again, love the Pope. Pope doesn't think they're true Christians because they don't live inside the Roman Empire. All right, you with me? All right. So, very famous man is going to live up here. All right, one of the Germanic tribe leaders. His name is Charles Martel. Charles Martel is going to be very, very famous because there's going to be a massive invasion of Europe by another religion called Muslims. Islam and Muslims are going to invade Europe. All right, now. When you say invade, it's like, oh, everybody's just hanging out being nice, and these evil, mean people showed up. There are very few, like, I don't want to say innocent people, because I guess everybody would be innocent depending on how you view it. Usually both sides are a little guilty when these big religious wars happen. But so Muslims invade Europe to try to take over Europe and make it Muslim. So I'll use pink here. So the Muslims invade here. All right. Charles Martel. All right. He is a very religious man, as they all were. Here, he is going to go out here with the Germanic tribes and fight the invading Muslim army. All right. Very famous battle called the Battle of Tours. All right. The Battle of Tours is very, very, very important in world history, because had Charles Martel lost the Battle of Tours, Europe most likely today would be Muslim. All right. He is going to win the Battle of Tours and leave Europe being Christian. All right. So the Battle of Tours had drastic future consequences for the whole world. Basically, whoever is going to win that is going to then be able to force their religion on one of the most densely populated places on earth. Charles Martel wins this war. So the Christian guy wins, a check mark there. All right. And the Muslims are forced back to the Middle East at the time. The reason this is important, guess who is like crazy famous now in the non-Roman Empire? Is Charles Martel. Super famous. Everybody loves him. He is thought to be this great Christian. Even the Pope likes him. All right. So Charles Martel is going to live to be an old man, and then he's going to die. All right. Who inherits his kingdom? All right. Again, outside the Roman Empire. Here, who's going to inherit Charles Martel's kingdom after he dies is his grandson, a man named Charlemagne. Charlemagne, crazy, crazy, crazy important in world history, because there's a situation that starts happening down here in Rome. All right. So let me make sure that we are, I'll probably come back to this map. We answered 11. We've talked about 12 in detail. We can skip this. And so Charlemagne has come out. So here is something that we haven't talked about that is very important to understand as an underlying thing. So you have some kings and empires, very, stereotypical stuff you see on TV. The kings rule here and there. There's not police. There's not all these like big functioning government bureaucracy stuff. You have a tax collector has to come, you have to go pay your taxes and stuff like that. There's a very, very small government. All right. There's nobles that would control a bunch of stuff, and we'll talk about that later on. But the Roman Catholic Church, the religion itself, is so important at the time because it's the stabilizing force which is going to exist in society. All right. With very weak central governments, like with these kings and stuff, there's not a lot of bureaucracy that actually run a bunch of stuff. That the church, which is widespread, is very influential in keeping structure in society. That the church basically judged people when they did things wrong. You could get like arrested by the church for doing things wrong. The church becomes basically the authority figure in people's lives. So the church is incredibly important. While the governments are out, trying to get money, fight wars, do whatever they want to do that helps out themselves, what actually controlled people's lives on a day-to-day basis and created a structure to society is going to be the Roman Catholic Church. Extremely important at the time. So that is what brought people unity and stability. So you can't underestimate the power of the church led by the Pope. This is just a picture of the Battle of Tours. People just hacking each other to death. All right. So here's what's cool. There's this guy named Pope Leo II. All right. So Pope Leo II lives right here in Rome. All right. So Pope Leo II lives here in Rome. There's a whole bunch of bad guys getting ready to come in and take out Rome. So Rome is a very rich city. All right. Whole bunch of bad guys going to come in, kill everybody in Rome, take all the money, kill the Pope, all the stuff. He knows this is going to happen, and he gets terrified. All right. So what does he do? Which is logical, all right? He is going to ask for help from the capital of the Roman Empire over here in Constantinople. Now, Constantine himself is dead. So there's an emperor over there. No need in me wasting more of your time and making you memorize names you don't need to know. But Pope Leo II is famous, and he is here in Rome. He's like, oh my gosh, I'm about to get attacked. Please come help us, Constantinople. Well, Constantinople and the emperor over here at the Roman Empire, he is making a ton of money off of this whole area here. All right. All of this area in here. All right. You know what's causing them just a whole bunch of ridiculous problems? All this stuff in here. That's what's causing him all these problems. And he's like, you know what? I don't care. Like, if the Pope gets killed and then gets taken over, that's fine. I'm not real worried about it. So when the Pope finds out, when Pope Leo II finds out that nobody's coming to protect him, he gets really, really scared. You know who he asked for help from to come defend him? Oh, Charlemagne, the grandson of Charles Martel, who's up here in the non-Roman Republic, who's Christian. So he knows if he asks Christians to come help him out, they will. So he says, hey, Charlemagne, with your big army, will you come defend me? Now, Charlemagne, devout Christian, guess what he says? Absolutely. All right. So Charlemagne, which is kind of funny that he would come down and help out the Pope. The Pope technically doesn't even acknowledge them as Christians prior to this. But now that he needs help, he's like, hey, please come help us out. So Charlemagne comes down to Rome. And oh man, the story is so cool, but we just don't have time. We got to get through the long story short. Charlemagne just drops a hammer on all these invaders. Just absolutely destroys them, just wipes them out. Does a fantastic job defending Rome. And all the invaders get destroyed, and Charlemagne is here, and he's like got the Pope surrounded, and the Pope could not be happier that Charlemagne has come in here and defended him. All right? Now, there's a lot of battles, a lot of people come defending who. How does this change the world? Here's how. The Pope, all right, is so happy. Again, here's the Pope. I shouldn't use blue there, should I? Let's go back to pink. That's a pretty easy one to see. Pope is here in Rome. He's like, hey, Charlemagne. Because Charlemagne is like packing his stuff up, going back up north. He's not expecting anything. And Charlemagne says, or Pope Leo II says, hey, Charlemagne, you want to go to heaven? Charlemagne's like, yeah, I do. It's like, not today, but yeah, when I die, I want to be able to go to heaven. He's like, here's what I'll do for you. Not only will I help you out and make sure you go to heaven, but I, the Pope, the leader of the church, I'm going to name you the emperor of the Roman Empire. The Pope just named Charlemagne the emperor of the Roman Empire. Of the entire Roman Empire. Now, here's what's weird about this. He can't do that. He can't. Yeah, the Pope doesn't have the right. I mean, nobody's ever really thought about who has the right to do this, but the Pope does. He's never done this before. He's like, you're the new emperor. The reason that's weird, all right, is there is currently an emperor here in Constantinople as well. All right. That is a huge, huge problem. So now you have two emperors. You have the emperor here, and then you have the emperor here in Rome, who is Charlemagne. All right. While the emperor and Constantine is furious over this, there's nothing he can really do about it because Charlemagne's army is huge. All right. And it is very, very powerful. So what this is going to do is it's going to effectively divide the world in half. All right. And this is going to be the big downfall of the Roman Empire as they start dividing themselves at the very end here. So Charlemagne, all right, is going to rule here after he defends the Pope. Charlemagne's in charge here and everything is good. He is like the dictator. Everything is good. The problem is, and I believe we got to another question here. Yeah, so the question here on the next question is, why does the Pope ask Charlemagne for help and not, the army of Rome. Well, he did ask the army of Rome, and they didn't care. They weren't going to come help him out. They didn't really care if he got taken over. So that's going to force the Pope, because he doesn't want to die, to ask help from Charlemagne. All right. So once Charlemagne is given becoming the emperor, all right, and Charlemagne understands this tension, and he basically, this area I have circled here, that is where he is going to rule. Everything is good until Charlemagne dies. When Charlemagne dies, all right, all of his grandsons, because he's pretty old when he dies, all of his grandsons start arguing over who gets to rule now that he is dead. So what his grandsons do is they argue and they argue and they argue, and they start dividing this stuff up. Almost basically like what you see on this map. All right, they start dividing this land up. This is where you're going to start getting France, England, Germany. These countries that we have now is really going to come out from Charlemagne's grandchildren, who are arguing and start splitting this land up themselves. So the Roman Empire is going to collapse, and each individual country is going to start coming out. They're all going to have kings, all right, and they're going to have a similar style of doing things that's going to be called feudalism, that we're going to start talking about here in the next few lessons. But so it's going to break apart, and with Charlemagne's grandchildren, and we're going to start talking about how these different countries interact with feudalism. We're still in the Dark Ages. Nobody's educated. Nobody really knows stuff. So it's just a bunch of dumb stuff is going to happen for like 1,000 years. With the way that these countries interact with each other, the way they rule the people, the way the kings do things. We're going to talk about that in great detail in the next couple lessons. So the number 16 here is, even though Charlemagne was able to unite a fractured Rome by his leadership, how did his 3 grandsons cause it become split again? Is they couldn't agree on who got to rule, so they just started splitting it up between them, which is going to lead to like the countries and stuff that we have today. All right, so that's as far as we're going to get for this part of the lesson. Go on and complete the next part of the lesson. See you guys tomorrow. As I say that. See you guys.